Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a special episode of Daniel's Dread Tales. Right now, we're going to be doing a little behind the scenes on our first season, Dance in the Blood. And we're going to chatting with the players and talk about how we felt for our first little record and some of the decisions we made. And so before we get started, let's once again go around and we'll introduce ourselves. I'm, as you may know, Daniel, host of the show.
And I'm Russell. They. I'm in my 30s and figuring stuff out. Don't hold it against me. I played Dr. Michael Laws.
And I'm Dominic. I played Jonesy, the lovable gentleman. Pronouns he, him.
I'm Nathan. He, him. I played the artist Helen Long.
Awesome. So, I guess my first question for you guys is, what did you think about the adventure?
I had fun.
I enjoyed going gradually crazier.
Well, you did pretty good at doing the crazy. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, had any of you guys played specifically Trail of Cthulhu before, any of the Gumshoe games?
I had not.
This was my first time playing a Gumshoe game, which is weird because I think the system is really great and I've always wanted to play it, but just never found the time or the people. So it was nice.
Well, I do want to run it again sometime, so we'll give that a shot. There's also a Gumshoe one-on-one thing I want to do if we ever want to do an episode with just me and one player, but that's a conversation for another time.
You could kind of make it sound like an interrogation room. You could do it that way. That'd actually be kind of cool.
That is extremely cool.
I didn't think about that. Something to think about later.
Yeah, somebody jot that down.
But hints for the future. I'd like to hear, in particular, what did you think about the characters that you were playing? How did you feel? Why did you make the choices that you were making for your characters? How about you, Nathan? What did you think about your artistic self?
Partially, I ended up picking Helen because I really liked the idea of just an artist who's here to see some fucked up shit that comes back to bite her because nothing good happens to an artist in Lovecraft. It doesn't happen. You're not going to make it out of it with your sanity intact. Which Helen very much didn't.
Yeah, I guess I should say, when you say you picked Helen, I provided you guys with a list of, I think it was 6 pre-made characters for you to take a look at, and you settled on an artistic soul who's, didn't make it.
Yeah, a lot of what went into Helen ended up just being how I usually react to situations, where I'm exasperated, but I try to move on, because we were in a very exasperating situation on account of the increasingly sociopathic doctor.
I found Helen to be a really good sounding board for all my crazy.
Glad I could help.
Yeah, you sort of worked as, nobody wants to be the straight man, but it did sort of work as you were arguably the only sane man in the room, or woman, as it were, and then taking your life to get out of this nonsense.
Like, near the end, I just I figured it's a one-shot. I can afford to, just ignore game mechanics and just have her go absolutely crazy at the idea of turning into one of these things.
And I appreciate that.
And so I do feel a little bad because I kind of just stopped playing the game. I like to think I added something by just losing it in the background. I also realized when I re-listened to our last session, Helen slit her own throat, right?
A little bit.
That was a step in the becoming a worm person thing. So I might have accidentally... Whoops.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that is one of the steps to wormifying, or whatever it was.
Hopefully, the lack of the other steps makes it so that, Helen did not turn into a worm person and instead just died as requested.
I mean, here's the thing, Helen. You were always a worm person. You just didn't want to let it out.
I'm pretty sure the crux of my character in the finale is that she did not want that.
Just had to pop that shell off.
Well, you would be the expert. Dominic, tell us about the lovable Jonesy.
Jonesy is an interesting character because when we were selecting our characters, it was either between Jonesy or the dilettante, and either was going to be someone that slowly just broke over time or someone that was Well, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. The dilettante was just gonna be just a piece of work, but I didn't want to do that, so I just went with someone that would slowly lose every pillar of whatever they hold on to over time. So Jonesy's like big pillar was, not well, it was like reporting to the authorities. Britain, which I didn't really play into because I'm not British. I'm not British, and I'm not gonna pull that. What was it? Not Dick Van Dyke. Who played the chimney sweeper in Mary Poppins?
No, that was Dick Van Dyke, right?
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna do that. No, sir.
A side note, fun fact, I ran into Dick Van Dyke once, literally. I was a singer in something called the Candlelight Carol at Disneyland. This is when I was in high school. And Dick Van Dyke was one of the... there's a bunch of people singing, and then one person comes out like a celebrity and like does like a reading to go along with it. I was going to the bathroom in the back of one of their little stages where they had us all crammed, and he was coming out of the bathroom as I was going in, and I literally bumped into him. Yeah. Seems like a nice guy.
That's some deep Daniel lore there.
There's some Daniel lore, yes.
There we go. Mark that down in the wiki.
They do this thing at Disneyland called the Candlelight Carol, which is extremely religious-y for Disney. Sorry, I got sidetracked. I heard Dick Van Dyke and I had to say my one celebrity story. Continue what you're doing. You
know what? We got the lore. We got the lore. I'm gonna take that as a lore check, and I succeeded. So yeah, I just wanted to go with someone that would break over time, and so another big pillar was he's gonna make it out alive regardless of whatever happens. I definitely played that up at the very end, where I was like, you know what? This isn't worth it. I'm gone. I'm done. No more. Bye. But, since he is a worm person, he will hear the call and he will slowly make his way back, regardless if he wants to or not.
And how about our, in some ways, maddest character, Dr. Laws?
Well, I enjoyed that the first thing I said was a verbal typo with the brander. And going into it, I knew I wanted to play someone just sort of different than, how you usually play RPGs. And then I just kept passing sanity checks.
Yeah, I thought it was a little interesting how you were, like, I got what you were doing. You were trying to be like, a little bit zany, a little bit different in a sort of way of doing it. But then as you saw the storyline going around, that sort of zaniness turned into something a little bit more menacing. At least that's sort of how I saw it.
Oh, but I dropped hints all the way through. Like, early on, they're talking about going to the ferry landing. I'm like, oh, excellent, a second location. Towards the end, I'm the only one succeeding at lurking around a place, and, it's like you guys have never done this before.
I will say, the slow realization that it wasn't a bit really stuck with me. Like, just slowly realizing, wait, he's just not just zany, he's actually a sociopath. I was making jokes, but no, he's genuinely insane.
Part of the reason I played it that way actually comes from the Blades in the Dark game that most of us have been part of, and I was describing something gruesome going on, but with none of the weight that deserves. And I really enjoyed how that came out in the actual game. I was like, I wonder if I can do that here.
Just unfazed by the nightmare around you in a way that is rough. I guess the thing I do want to ask is, have you guys ever played much like actual spooky Lovecraft or horror-y role-playing games before where this sort of thing would happen?
I have been the horror before. I played a game of Dragon Age tabletop, and I was coming into it partway through. I was like, well, I'm sitting there at the bar, I've got a 1,000-yard stare in my eyes, and I'm covered in blood. They're like, oh, something awful must have happened to this guy. As it turns out, no, this guy's awful. I believe my last game, the party decided to stay with me to protect the world from my evil. Good times.
Dominic, Nathan, any experience with horror games before?
Not really. Yeah, no, for the most part, I've always, I really like a lot of different systems, but I've never really had the people to diversify with. But even then, horror was never really on my radar until you basically asked everybody if anybody wanted to take part in this podcast. And I said, sure, sounds like fun. I know this guy, he likes Godzilla. I'd never really done any horror tabletop RPGs before, but this really went well, so I'm in now.
I do like Godzilla. All right. Glad to hear it. And how about you, Dominic?
No, actually, I've never played any horror RPGs ever. I've always really wanted to play Delta Green, but every time I would try to convince people that I normally play RPGs with, they're all like, Delta Green? No, that sounds boring. I'd rather go slay monsters and stuff. I'm like, well, you do. It's just like X-Files, guys. But, you know, it never falls through. So, yeah, this is the first time I've ever done a horror one.
Well, I have Delta Green on the list. It's on the big board of things I want to get to. So when we do that, we'll have to bring you back for that.
Ooh, I definitely, because there's the one scenario that I think is infamous, which is the one based in Vietnam. That one's the one that I've been eyeing the entire time.
There's a peak for the future. As for me, I actually quite like horror stuff. I wish I could run horror stuff all the time, which is why I made a podcast where I could do it all the dang time. I mean, you guys help me with the podcast, of course, but it's got my name on it. I actually have run this scenario in particular once before. It was actually one of my favorite role-playing game experiences I ever had, which is why I wanted to start off this one with this pretty good scenario. You may have heard way back in the day, I think it's not that far back in the day, but I did a couple of episodes on the old podcast Friday Night Quest, where I ran a couple of like spooky games for them as like sort of a one-off thing, and I had a pretty good time with that. And I just have always wanted to do that. It started as a thing where I would try to run like a Halloween game for my regular D&D group, and now it just has sort of become me wanting to just run horror stuff all the time. I think it's really good, especially for one-shots. A horror campaign would be a little bit more difficult, but for one-shots, I really like that you can just like go in and know that like, maybe we're not getting through this one, and I think that's a really fun time.
I suppose I've also played a game of Alien with you, and I drank a xenomorph. That was pretty good.
Oh, yeah, we did play that. Oh, yeah, I got blown apart.
Yeah, there was a little Alien game I ran for a couple of you folks that didn't go well.
It went great.
I missed this one.
Yeah. Well, we'll be running some Alien on the show as well. I'm actually running a personal Alien game right now with a couple of folks. Kind of training wheels for this show.
Are you doing the Space Truckers one, or are you doing the Colonial Marines one?
I'm doing a Colonial Marine one right now, because I've done that Space Trucker one before. I'm trying a Colonial Marine one.
Oh, okay, so is that one going to be a long-standing campaign, or is that going to be kind of like the one-shot? Because, like, I've always heard that people that run the Colonial Marines one, it turns into, like, it's like, oh, it starts off as a one-shot, and they're like, everyone survived, let's just do another one, see if I can kill off more, and then, you know, a year later.
Well, let me tell you this. We've played one episode so far. I think the idea is we're just going to break it up over 3 sessions. One person's already dead. So they're not all making it through. Aliens, they're rough. But enough about another game in the future. I do want to mention that you guys did a little better than the first time I ran this game. Only one person survived, the first time I played this scenario, the Dance of the Blood. You guys, 2 people survived.
Though I would argue that's not a good thing for one of their cases.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, no, it's bad. No, all of it's bad. There was no happy ending for this. I do quite admire the fact, not admire, I think it's very interesting that you guys went explicitly like player versus player near the end. When I played this before, I just had, I had one person set themselves on fire in the house, along with all the documents to make sure that it wouldn't get out again. And then another person was right about to sacrifice their brother and instead killed themselves to make it so that they wouldn't have to do that. Whereas our Dr. Laws ran headfirst into it, loving every minute of it.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you think that the world needs to know about our first season?
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I'm sure I had a million things lined up in my head, but now that you have called upon them, like Kaiser Soze, someone has to understand that reference, right?
Is that what Kaiser Soze is?
I think I've only ever seen the end of that movie.
Okay. Well, I'm referencing the end of that movie.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't. I actually don't.
The Usual Suspects, poof, like they were never there. Gone.
Oh, that's what you mean. It was like it was never there. I thought you were saying you put a bunch of clues together and realized, well, no spoilers for that movie.
I have put nothing together.
Oh, now that you said the movie, oh no, what have you, Nathan, what have you done? Hopefully no one's gonna put that together.
If you don't know the ending of The Usual Suspects, that's on you. The movie's overrated anyway.
Whoa. Look, the twist of that is phenomenal. You don't want to give people the heads up.
Well, I think it's vague. I think it's vague enough. I think we're good.
Everybody knows.
Look, sometimes there's got to be a statute of limitations on spoilers. I went and saw the King Kong remake when it was out in theaters. I went with one of my roommates at the time. The words King Kong pops up on the screen. And I jokingly lean over and whisper to my buddy Jeff,
"Oh, Jeffrey, my brother."
I hear he dies at the end of this. And he was like, "Whoa, dude! You're spoiling it for me." And I said, "It's King Kong, dude. There's a statute of limitations on this stuff. You know he climbs up the building. Did you think he was gonna climb down?"
That'd be quite the twist.
It's the same, it's just the faster steps.
Speed climbing.
Yes, he fell down. That's different than climbing.
Because I was about to say, the King Kong remake, which one? Like, my brain immediately went with, like, Kong Skull Island, Peter Jackson's King Kong.
No. The one that was just King Kong. Jackson's King Kong.
The one with Jack Black?
Yeah, because he actually climbs up a building in that one.
Because doesn't he climb a building in Kong vs. Godzilla too? And then the scaling gets really, really weird.
Yeah, look, they had to make it big enough to fight Godzilla. It's fine.
You see, trying to think about scaling in a kaiju movie is a fool's errand, and the only thing you'll get out of it is a headache and slightly less fun. And why would you want either of those things?
Yeah. That's always the thing that's funny if you like really start going deep into like kaiju stuff. People talk like, well, in this movie, Godzilla's X meters tall, but in this one, he's like taller. And it's like, oh, who cares, man? It's fine. Whatever. Well, before this turns into a kaiju podcast, which some people might want to listen to, but I think most people would like to skip, I think that we will call it. Though I do want to just throw out real quick, thank you so much for sticking around and listening to our first season. It's really great to know that people are listening. And a really other great thing to do would be for you to review our podcast. I say that kind of as a joke, but like seriously, it really helps the podcast pop off and get the word out there. So please review us on your podcast platform of choice. Though ideally maybe do it on Apple iTunes. I don't really like iTunes, but that's how people get stuff out there.
We just want to pop up, Rose.
Anything you want to do, just we're putting this stuff together, and I hope you'd like it, and I just wish more people could hear it. So thanks, everybody. Oh, I gotta say something spooky. I've been saying spook-related things at the ends of episodes. Oh, goodness.
Oh, might I suggest Spookylicious?
Spookalicious. Ooh.
Please don't say Spookylicious.
I mean, we've had 2 people say that word now, so I will say it as well.
Oh.
Have a spookylicious day, boils, ghouls, and booze.
That's a stretch.
It sounds like it's starting to hurt even you.
All right, I'm out.